Welcome aboard to podcast 42 in the series of the Voyage to Back Yonder. And we've been talking about pirates and how we can feel they're trying to steal our joy. But in today's episode, I'd like to talk about another group of characters that can challenge our adventure. The kings and the queens. Especially right now with the political ads and debates starting up, I thought this is a great subject to talk about, as it seems that a lot of our peace goes out the door when this political season starts up. And well, I think we're always in a political season, but this is the time that the media brings the most attention to it. Kings and queens are not only those who we've voted to be in government leadership. Our lives can be filled with kings and queens who we've allowed ourselves to be influenced by, and we've made different choices on whether we'll be happy or sad because of their influence. And that list of royalty can be a big one sometimes. Parents, teachers, religious leaders, family, friends, media, movies, music, TV, bosses, spouses, or significant others, even dating sites. The cast of characters is huge, isn't it? Is it any wonder why we feel pressure a lot of the time to be someone for one person and someone else for another, and yet someone else for someone else? And they all have an idea of who we are supposed to be. And we're usually being bombarded with opinions and thoughts about who we're supposed to be throughout our day. Sometimes it can even feel like we're being held ransom. Our self-worth may feel like it's been turned into an auction determining our value. But it is called self-worth and not retail for a reason. Self-worth is determined by the self. My self-worth is determined by myself. And your self-worth is determined by yourself. We're also taught to point outward to all those people and influences, all those kings and those queens, to say, look, they're telling me that I am this and that I am that. I'm not thin enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not wealthy enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not loved enough. Those last ones may hit home harder than the others because that's what is at the root of all our fears, that we're not loved or worthy of love. And that's why we're always in a political season. We have a certain face on for certain people in order to gain their vote of our acceptability. We want to get elected into their love circle, so we can feel confident that we're worthy and lovable. But can we ever really be confident that their external love will ever last the test of time? If you thought these 2 and 4 year cycles of government elections seem to come too often, imagine that every moment we are up for re-election into someone's love circle. The pressure! At any moment, I can do something that loses favor with the public, and my favorability ratings will drop. No! We might even gain confidence when some of those who we feel are the important voters are constantly voting us favorable. Except for that one time where they voted against us in a moment. We might think they were just having some poor judgment on their part at the time. But that also makes us not be 100% confident in that external love. At any moment, they can turn on you. We've seen it happen. Maybe we've had it happen to us. And maybe we turned on someone else. The older I get, the more I realize that external love is unstable. But that's okay. Try not to fret. There's hope. When we reach enough disappointment from the outside things and people, we'll eventually turn inside to where we find that stable, unconditional love that can never be lost. No conditions. That means there are no conditions where that love can be lost. We might think that the one-on-one relationships we have with external people is real, but really, aren't we all playing characters in a giant play? The actors behind these characters that we're playing are eternal, unconditionally loving beings, but we seldom break character here on stage to show that. And we agreed to be mirrors for each other and reflect back how each of us feels about ourselves to ourselves. We're in relationships with mirrors. And when we're looking for our love outside of ourselves, we're cheating on ourselves with someone else. We can only find the love we're truly looking for from within. Once we find that, the mirrors start reflecting back to us that unconditional love. It's funny, but when we see that unconditional love being reflected in the mirrors, we can go through phases where we start reaching out externally to that mirror because we think that unconditional love that's being reflected back to us is out there in the external world. But when we take the focus off the internal, eternal, unconditional love inside us, we're drawn back out into the conditional love world with all its rules of acceptability. We're stung by the fear of being worth less than we really know we're worth deep within us. It's like the famous sirens of Greek mythology. Their songs draw us to drive our ships into the rocks near the shore. And when we can learn to recognize these songs they sing, we can fight against blindly following the direction they're trying to draw us to. What can these songs sound like? Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. But they can ignite feelings that were responsible for others. The songs talk about other people's happiness, other people's health, other people's choices, all these things outside of our control. They can sound like the expectations of taking care of your parents or taking care of your grandchildren. I had a friend whose son went to jail, and the mother was deemed unfit to care for her children. So the grandparents either had to take care of the grandchildren themselves, or they would have to go into foster care. Usually, when we feel we have to do something, we tend to feel trapped in that situation by fear. What would people think if we didn't care for those children? It's what we're supposed to do. But when we're in fear, the moments will most likely be full of impatience and anger. The children will sense it, and out of fear will begin to act out, fighting or fleeing. It could turn into a spiral of conflict. When we calm ourselves and root ourselves in unconditional love for ourselves and others, then this can allow us to make the choices we want. So in this situation, I could or could not choose to foster my own grandchildren. And if I chose to, it would be a decision out of love instead of a decision out of fear. And the whole experience could shift from fear to love. The children could shift their behavior from fear to love because they would sense love instead of fear. Now, I'm sure some of our sirens are singing in our ears right now with the song of, how could anyone not take care of their own grandchildren? Well, sometimes in life, the outcome for an individual can be the best experience for them if certain individuals are absent from their life. It could be safer for the child mentally and physically. Or maybe the little soul wanted to learn independence and strength by dealing with what individuals would title their childhood as abandonment. Haven't we all felt abandoned by someone, somehow, some way? We can realize our inner strength by experiencing being left to fight for our own lives. We can turn from the victim in the story to the hero in the story by freeing ourselves from the fear of what people will think. We can turn our story from being the peasants of our kingdom to the royalty of our kingdom by reclaiming our birthright of being the only ones who get to decide what our lives mean about ourselves. And really, all along, we have been the only ones who have made any decision about our own actions and what life has meant about us. We are the ones who made the decision to believe the stories others have told us. And now we can make the choice to continue to believe the stories or make a plot twist and choose differently. Until next episode, take some deep breaths and go up to a mountain. Go to the very top of the mountain in your mind. Look over your life. Look over your Facebook page and other social media pages. What thoughts are you believing and communicating about your life? What stories are you repeating over and over in your head about who you are? Are you ready for a new story? A new thought? A new choice? No one can make the choice for your kingdom. It's your own. And if you look closely into the castle of your kingdom, you will see a throne. And there, sitting on the throne, is a powerful individual. If you look closely, you'll see that it's you. Enjoy your voyage, Your Highness. I love you.